Good does not become better when it is exaggerated, but worse. And a small evil becomes a great evil when it is disregarded and repressed. The shadow is an important part of the human being, and it is only at night that the shadows disappear. Carl Jung believed that people should strive to be complete, not perfect. If you want to grow and live better, you need to face the parts of yourself that have been hidden or even ignored for too long. These hidden parts are what Jung called our unconscious dark side, where our shadow dwells. But what do most people hide in their shadow? It's all the things that society says are bad or wrong, the things our family or friends don't like, and the parts of us that, when we first showed them, were ridiculed, ignored, or punished. But because no set of rules is perfect, and no family or friend group knows exactly how to fit us into the world, we don't just hide the bad parts of ourselves, like wild anger, uncontrolled feelings, or animalistic instincts. We also end up hiding the good and positive parts of who we are. For example, have you noticed how, on social media, many people hide the most vulnerable or real side of their lives? We're taught to only show what seems good or acceptable, and we end up repressing real emotions like frustration or sadness. But hiding them doesn't make them disappear. They just go into the shadows. Perhaps our confidence has been discouraged, our first creative ideas have been ridiculed, or our will to compete and succeed has been seen as a problem by those around us. As we hide these parts of who we are in our shadow, we become calm, obedient, easy to predict, and perhaps even easier to like. But we lose some of our energy and the sense of being fully ourselves. Edward Whitman said, "The shadow, when we understand it, is where we find new energy. When we feel stuck and life seems empty, even if we think we've grown enough, we need to look at the hidden, darker parts of ourselves that we haven't used yet." First, we need to see how the dark, hidden parts of ourselves, which we usually think are bad, can actually help us grow. Don't most people say that our dark side is full of bad things that we have to fight against? But when we understand Carl Jung's idea, it becomes clear that balancing our shadow helps us to become stronger and more independent. This process can bring feelings of disobedience or even discomfort, but it also leads to self-confidence. And without self-confidence, it's not possible to become true and unique. When we learn about the shadow as an idea and then start to look inside ourselves through thought and reflection, we try to discover what makes up our own shadow. This makes us realize something uncomfortable. Part of who we are doesn't fit in with what the world today, our family, friends, and society say is good or bad. To protect who we are, this understanding can lead us to think like Nietzsche and go beyond the ideas of right and wrong, questioning the rules we've been taught to follow. When we start to question these rules, we can see that many of them are based on things like hypocrisy, laziness, or fear. We can also see that when people criticize or judge others, it is often due to envy. Realizing this can make us feel like acting in ways that don't match what society says is good, ways that may even seem wrong or bad to others. We don't want to become evil by doing terrible things or hurting others. Instead, we want to get away from the problems in our moral rules so that we can reconnect with the parts of ourselves that have been hidden in our shadows for a long time. Eric Norman, a follower of Jung, said, "When we observe how people grow up, it becomes clear that doing and understanding some amount of evil isn't just inevitable. It's actually necessary for someone to grow up. They also need to face the difficulties that come with this process." Becoming independent means not only following the group's values, but also ensuring that your own needs are met, even when they go against the group's values. This can mean doing things that seem bad to others. Many people feel scared or shocked at the idea of questioning or breaking the rules they have been taught to follow. They think that the ideas of good and evil that they have learned at school, from family, friends, and society are as real and unchangeable as the world itself. This doesn't just happen in the social world, but also in the professional one. Think of someone who is stuck in a job they don't like, but feels it's wrong to leave because it would be irresponsible. This person may be repressing the desire to change because they have been taught that stability is more important than the pursuit of happiness. Most people don't realize that just as a society can have problems and need fixing, the rules about what is right and wrong can also be flawed. For many people, the idea of the shadow seems very frightening because it threatens the way they see themselves. Their self-image has been built up over years of trying to be what they thought others wanted them to be. But ignoring the shadow doesn't make it go away. Instead, it can lead to a worse problem. The shadow can take over in ways they don't even realize. The harmful side of the shadow can lead people down a path similar to the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In public, most people act responsibly, kindly, and calmly. But when they are alone at home, the shadow can sometimes control them, making them act without thinking. This can manifest itself through addictions, strange habits, sudden outbursts of anger, or other self-damaging behaviors. People need to understand that they have a shadow, the darker side of their personality, because it often takes over when they don't realize it. Carl Jung explained that if you ignore your shadow and pretend it doesn't exist, it won't disappear. Instead, it becomes bigger and more powerful, making it harder to control. As Jung said, like plants, men also grow, some in the light, others in the shadows. There are many who need the shadows and not the light. If you try to get rid of parts of yourself you don't like by pretending they don't exist, you'll start to lose touch with who you really are. It's like saying you don't exist, and the problems you ignore will only get bigger and stronger. Ignoring your shadow makes it easier for your harmful side to take over. That's why it's so important to include your shadow as part of who you are. It's necessary for your well-being. It's like when we pretend that we're fine all the time, even in difficult situations, just because we feel that society expects it of us. To understand how to do this, let's focus on one part of the shadow that many people have to deal with: aggression. Nowadays, when people hear the word aggression, they usually think of violence and destruction, but that's only one side of the issue. There is also a healthy kind of aggression that is very important for our mental health and even our survival. This healthy aggression helps us to feel in control of our own lives, gives us courage when we are afraid, and leads us to explore and learn about the world. Aggression is not always synonymous with harm. In fact, it can be a good and useful force. Psychoanalyst Clara Thompson says that aggression comes from a natural desire to grow and take control of life, something that all living beings seem to have. But when this natural energy is blocked or interrupted, it can turn into feelings such as anger, rage, or hatred. Unfortunately, for many of us, this natural life force of aggression was blocked when we were growing up. When we showed aggression, positively or otherwise, we often received disapproval, punishment, or even violence, rather than support or understanding. In order to avoid problems and adapt, we learn to hide our aggression deep inside, in our shadow. But this has led to feelings of anger, rage, and hatred accumulating over time due to years of repression. Psychotherapist Alexander Lowen explained that some people carry such intense unconscious anger that they feel it is a dangerous secret that they cannot reveal. This kind of anger is like a bomb that hasn't exploded yet, and they are too afraid to go near it. If we push our aggression into our shadow, how can we bring it back so that we feel less angry and become better, stronger people? There is no simple or universal way of doing this. It's more like solving a complicated problem or being a good negotiator. It depends on each person. First, we have to accept that the shadow is real and take it seriously. Next, we need to understand what it looks like and what it wants. To do this, we must pay careful attention to our feelings, daydreams, and impulses. Finally, we need to go through a slow and patient process of sorting things out with our shadow. This takes time and effort, but it is an important step towards personal growth. After accepting that the shadow is real, the next step is to pay close attention to our feelings and thoughts. Do we feel a silent anger bubbling up inside us for no clear reason? Perhaps we are always having thoughts or daydreams that come from feelings such as bitterness, anger at ourselves, resentment, or even the desire to destroy something or take revenge. If these things happen, it's a sign that we haven't found a healthy way to include our aggression in who we are. To start balancing our aggression, we can look for safe, controlled, and useful ways to express it. One of the best options is to take part in a competitive sport, try martial arts, or follow an exercise plan. These activities can help us reconnect with our natural aggressive energy in a healthy way. We can also practice trusting our way of acting, making decisions more firmly, and standing up for ourselves when other people, such as friends, family, or work colleagues, challenge us. These steps help us to use our aggression in a positive and useful way. As Jung explained, balancing the shadow cannot happen unless we admit the characteristics and desires linked to it. We need to face these parts of ourselves and allow them to express themselves, but in a careful and measured way. It's important to stay alert and not let these characteristics take total control. Nietzsche once wrote, "I believe that you are capable of all kinds of bad things. That's why I hope for good from you. I always laugh at people who think they're good just because they don't have claws." This reminds us that we shouldn't confuse weakness with goodness and that we should be mindful when working on this process. The aim of balancing our aggression is not to become a bad person. Instead, it's about reconnecting with the hidden energy and strength we need to become the strong and capable person we want to be. This means acting confidently without being overly aggressive, having the potential to be tough without becoming a violent person, and standing up for what we believe in without being cruel or petty. If we use this same method to work on other hidden parts of ourselves, such as our feelings about sexuality, creativity, ambition, or desire for power, we will see big changes in who we are. We will feel more stable, more comfortable being ourselves, more confident in making our own moral choices, more courageous and more able to trust ourselves. In simple terms, when we balance our shadow, we take a big step towards becoming complete. This integrity helps us to build the strong and incredible character that the modern world really needs. Accepting our shadow helps us delve deeper into who we really are. It gives us a new sense of depth, strength, and stability within ourselves. Unfortunately, this is difficult for many people, causing them to hide behind social masks. Are you one of them? Click on the video on the screen and ask yourself that question right now.